The 2021 Dutch curfew riots were a series of riots in the Netherlands that initiated as protests against the government's COVID-19 prevention measures and specifically the 2100 to 4:30 curfew that was introduced on the 23rd of January 2021. The police have described the events as the worst riots in the country since the 1980 coronation. Riots. The proposal to introduce a nationwide curfew to curb the spread of the coronavirus disease 2019 had been put on the table by the outbreak management team as early as September 2020, but did not gain the support of the House of Representatives at the time because of its strong association with World War II. 4 months later, however, the measure was deemed necessary as the number of infections was not declining fast enough, despite the fact that the Netherlands had been in a full lockdown since the 14th of December 2020. Furthermore, the more transmissible B.1.1.7 variant of the virus continued to spread across the country, raising concerns for a potential third wave of infections. Demissionary Prime Minister Mark Rutte announced his plan to introduce a 2030 to 4:30 curfew at a press conference on the 20th of January 2021. On the 21st of January, a majority in the House of Representatives voted to support the proposal. After a motion to postpone the curfew to 2100 had been adopted, the curfew would be in effect from the 23rd of January to at least the 10th of February 2021. Non-violent protests against the government's COVID-19 prevention measures had taken place on several occasions prior to the announcement of the curfew. However, on the 24th of January 2021, illegal demonstrations against the curfew in Amsterdam and Eindhoven escalated into violent riots. In response to police interventions, calls to riot were subsequently spread on social media, leading to riots in other places as well. During the first night of the curfew, the police issued 3,600 fines for being outside after 2100 without a valid reason. Anti-lockdown protesters and conspiracy theorists gathered in Amersfoort, Rotterdam, IJmuiden and Stein to demonstrate. On Urk, a former island in the province of Flevoland, groups of youths began to riot in protest against the curfew. The rioters vandalized police cars and threw stones and fireworks to police officers. Later that evening, a COVID-19 testing site of the Municipal Health Service was set on fire. 2 suspects have subsequently been arrested. On the 24th of January in the afternoon, hundreds of protesters gathered on Museum Play in Amsterdam, despite the fact that Mayor Femke Halsema, the chief police officer and the chief public prosecutor had prohibited the demonstration. The police used water cannons and police dogs to disperse the crowd, in response to which the protesters began throwing firework bombs towards police officers. Similarly, in Eindhoven, rioters who had come to the city center to protest against the lockdown measures attacked the police by throwing stones, golf balls, fireworks and knives. They also set vehicles on fire and looted a supermarket in the city's central station. According to ProRail, hundreds of thousands of euros in damage was inflicted to the railway station. In the evening, riots also took place in Enschede, Helmond, Roermond, The Hague, Tilburg and Venlo. In Enschede, rioters attempted to break the windows of the local hospital, Medisch Spectrum 20. More than 300 people were arrested. 150 people were arrested during the night from 25 to the 26th of January in Amsterdam and Rotterdam. Shops were looted and vandalized. The cities of Den Bosch, Zeewol, Amersfoort, Alkmaar, Hoorn, Gouda, Haarlem, and Veenendaal experienced troubles, including cars being burned and police attacked with stones. Den Bosch, Sittard Geleen, Stein and Capelle aan den IJssel issued an emergency decree for the upcoming night. Beek and Exesteren will have an emergency decree until the 10th of February, which will allow the police to do stop and frisk without reason. Zeewol declared an emergency order, which is one step below an emergency decree in Dutch law. Dutch police designated Den Bosch, Almelo and Haarlem as potential hotspots. The Icazia Hospital in Rotterdam also advised its patients not to come during the evening hours. as police designated the nearby Zoutpalaying as a potential hotspot. The riots that took place on the 26th of January were less heavy than the previous days. Despite some small riots in Amsterdam, Rotterdam and Hilversum, and some disturbances in The Hague, Schendel and Julianadorp, the situation in these 6 cities and villages was under control within about an hour. Many cities also saw massive support coming from their locals. Cities such as Maastricht saw its hardcore fanbase of its local football club, the Angel Side, gather as a reaction to the threats made by supposed rioters. A couple hundred supporters marched through the city, eventually making their way to the city center to make a statement. "We will not tolerate destruction and looting." Most of them went home around 21:00 to Adha.